Ian Rafalko, welcome back.
Howdy. How's it
Man,
going?
man, doing well, man, doing well. Looks like you're ready to jump on a confirmation hearing to become the next chief of Department of Defense. You look a little different than last time you stopped by, man.
Yeah, I had a scalp issue, so I shaved my head completely.
Uh,
Very bizarrely, uh, I shaved my head, and then, like, the moment I finished, uh, a friend of mine uh, had some medical news, and I didn't talk about it. 'Cause I didn't talk about shaving my head because I didn't want to seem like I didn't want to like pretend like I was uh what's the word?
Cahoots.
No, like
Nope.
in there's a word. This is a terrible start. I'm already forgetting words. Um like when someone has to shave their head for a disease and then people around them shave their heads. That wasn't what I did.
I didn't know if there was a word for that, but I'm aware of
There
the concept.
there's a word that people use and I'm wasting time thinking about it. But you get the
It,
point. I shaved my head. I had a scalp issue. My head's fine now. It's a transition period. I'm not a huge fan of the short hair, but I cleaned it up enough as much as I could. And so this is it. This is
Cool,
what you
man.
get.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a different appearance. I think it looks pretty cool. But I'm obviously a no hair having motherfucker. So if you look closer to me, maybe I feel less jealous that you can have some beautiful flowing locks.
I'll put the beanie. I'll put the beanie back on. Just say the word.
No, dude. But hey, man, I really wanted to have you back. Last time we were talking about Emily Armstrong and the Lincoln Park
Yeah.
controversy and everything. The time before was all Scientology, which is currently your wheelhouse. But man, I watch your stuff on TikTok, and you're a passionate dude about political things. And I'm not sure if it's politics necessarily. I'm not a political person, but I do pay attention to it. I think we can say at least you have strong opinions about issues, societal issues, the way things are going, and knowing your background. You know, being raised in the Berg household, and you know him in particular, you sort of intimated has some very interesting political views. I wanted to talk to you about sort of what's important to you in the political sphere. We'll use that for shorthand, right? So I know it's a more complicated issue, but for politically speaking, you know, how did you arrive at where you're at today? And has that differed significantly from like where you were growing up in Scientology in that household? Like talking about that arc.
Yeah. That's a good question. Because a lot of people just hear what I have to say and then they want to compare it. They want me to be this like perfect image of my dad because they like my dad, and that's why they know about me, is because they liked my dad and they heard about me. But really, it's like when you're in Scientology, the level of empathy that you're expected to feel is contrasted with your level of effectiveness toward pro survival activities, is what they call it. So I was raised with this narrative of distrusting authority or like government authority, because the government's trying to come at us, care for people. This seemed pretty reasonable. It was all the actionable stuff that you do in Scientology that rips away your soul that I hadn't done yet. And so I'm also on the spectrum for autism, so I deal with logic quite aggressively.
Me too.
It's not always, and I only work as well relative to the information that I have. And so I was a very sort of deadpan child. Eventually, as I came of age and I started involving myself in Scientology, it was just like left and right problems, pain, suffer, like immense debt people were going into, and I'm like, but why would they just put him into debt? That didn't make any sense. Like these small little pieces. I even have a book. Part of my recovery was writing down pieces, moments when I identified this is wrong. I feel wrong about this. Like people I knew who I noticed were ashamed about certain things that didn't make sense, and I realized that they had like pressures behind them. So like the tree of cascading responsibility for other people's pain became more aware to me, and I guess you could say that I just never forgot, and I keep remembering, um, you know, I keep remembering like all of these little pieces, and I connect them together, and the patterns line up, and I didn't really know what to do with it. I got very emotional when I left Scientology. I was very angry because I didn't really know how to process any of these emotions, and then I I used to be a little more uh, you know life sucks, so like what you can get away with, and like some people's lives are
Mm.
going to suck more than others, and you get into that kind of right wing pipeline, and my dad definitely like forced that as best he could, um, but it just kind of became for me useless to consider like mockery and oppression and uh, making light of other people's pain. It just didn't. I'm just not built like that. So you know, um, eventually I started watching, you know, uh, other creators who were more left leaning. I'm a big fan of Hassan Piker, so tune into him every now and then. And I don't have idols. I don't have people who I think are infallible, but learning from people who can describe the logic and the history behind different magnitudes of oppression, you can kind of, uh, you know, it's a picture. It's the sum of all of its parts. I like uh, details. I like emotions connected to details that tell me like things behind it. I like um, having to work on my own emotions, having to work on like if somebody like confronts me, just be like chilling out and hearing. So that's kind of opened up. But for the most part, when I left Scientology, I realized that it doesn't really matter what what you have shame about, or if I'm like ashamed to uh like speak out, if I have something that would be considered like a controversial political opinion, like I just have to be responsible with how I present it and honest. Like I don't think my opinions, I don't think I shit gold, but I can tell you that with who is slated to run this government of the country I reside, I think I have some good opinions. I mean, not like we set this up like that, but I like you asked the question. I think I'm more sane than I've ever been in a very real quality. I think it's there is no comparison, I guess, to who I used to be, because I used to be just like trying to figure it out. I had no like I was so like withheld from education and from other points of view that like I never really had, but the hunger was still there, the hunger to know more, and I was always very curious. I think now I'm just curious if we'll have a country.
It's working right now. All right, cool. Well, shit, that's a weird, awkward spot to try to re-enter the conversation. Where were we at?
I don't remember. We were talking about expectations in political environments, and I was talking about they want you to be very. Oh, I was saying that you're expected in these conversations to have very concrete and ironclad beliefs and have all this, studies that I've aggregated and that I can align to, and I hate to admit I'm a little more disorganized at the moment than that.
Well, I don't think you have to, and this is just maybe the way I approach things. It's like you've intimated through your answers recently that you kind of have this expectation that people have shit all figured out, and that somebody you said somebody way smarter than me can sort of figure this out, can organize society on, and I don't believe that at all. Like that's
no, what by that I mean at at that aspect. Like I don't. I have. Everyone has a part to play. I am not I wouldn't be the source of all good ideas if I had good ideas. I'd have good ideas that I'd have, and I can work in tandem with other people with great ideas on how to implement ideas or how to make my ideas better. It's more so also an exercise in humility, because my whole family are like vehemently narcissistic and the most insecure human beings I've ever met in my life. So there comes a time when I have to kind of also take responsibility with how I want to evolve. I want to make sure that I can check myself, and I want to make sure that in Scientology, it's all about like, are you doing things properly? Are you doing things the way that you're supposed to do them? And so there's an after effect for me and for many people of like, there's a right way to do everything. And so you put this expectation like, oh, well, I can't do that because that's probably already been done. Most things haven't been done. And I think that's what allows me to stream and to say things and not be, it's not being afraid of being heard really that prevents me. It's more so the mental exhaustion from dealing with what comes after.
Got it.
So I don't think everyone has it figured out. I have opinions about the human race and its cognitive development that I haven't properly contextualized to not sound very harsh. So I think but I do think that people are doing what they feel. A lot of people are doing what they feel is, for their own self-interest, and that could extend to their family, and that could extend to other people. And there are a lot of empathetic people. There's like, it's such a mix, such a flurry. The words that I use can be very, can be misplaced and inaccurate sometimes, or I'll generalize, and I don't like to generalize because it's very it's a tricky one. I'm saying this not to like here. There's a certain flavor that life has to me. And I feel like I'm offering it to people, and I'm saying, do you taste that? And they're like, I taste what? What the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, there's something there, and it sort of influenced how oh, fucking Christ.
What, did it do it again?
It propped up for me, but then it says it's uploading, so I'm just going
to... fucking Riverside. I'm going to...
Yeah. But it's influenced the way that I developed my perspective of others, because like how can I use whatever I like about myself to help other people, and how can I do that in a way that does not completely overwhelm me and make me useless to them? And I think other people, other likewise intellectualizers, would understand that it's not just the awareness of a problem you have that solves it. It's more so the the behaviors, the patterns that you drill in to your actions that actually cause change. It's no matter how aware I am of what's going on around me or other people or myself, it's it's my responsibility to just be a human being and to treat other people like human beings and to figure it out.
Got it. I vibe with all of that stuff, but this is a question of politics and government, right? Like that's kind of what I'm trying to poke at here. So I wanted to know something, because I agree with a lot of what you said. What have you given any thought to what the proper role of government should be, and have you thought about the philosophy, the two competing philosophies that tend to be either utilitarianism or some sort of philosophy of individual human rights. So those seem to be like the two approaches that people take that oftentimes
Yeah.
separate the people on the left from the right. Not always, but in a general sense, that seems to be the disconnect when they start talking about what the proper role of a government, if any, should be.
Yeah. Well, that I've thought about because I'm a very practical person, I like to think, and if I might be so bold, I think we should, as a species, increase our value for human life. I think we should, invent the drug that repairs brain damage and reverses lead poisoning. We should, develop treatments that, like, whatever the DNA of your body, whatever structure, like, is a natural ideal structure for your body, like, people should be able to heal. Like if you're, here's what I'm getting at. Heal the brain. People are able to think clearly. They're able to accept information. I find a lot of aggression, resistance to new ideas, a lot of resistance to dealing with emotions can happen via, brain damage of one kind or another, being dropped on your head as a child, drug abuse, lead poisoning, other toxic things, cleaning supplies,
Spanking kids and hitting and yelling at kids, like
emotional, physical trauma. Let's, psychologically actually make attempts to understand what the brain is trying to do and let it do that. Like, vehemently reject pseudoscience where we find it, useless. I have a very strong moral abhorrence to any ideology that resorts to the removal of another, ethnotype or group of people, anyone that you think that deserves to die in order for your ideology to thrive. I think that is a massive danger.
Let me poke at that. Like, I don't want to interrupt your flow, but
Nazis,
I have a question.
kill them all.
Yeah, I'm not, I think we can all agree, like, the Nick Fuentes white national ethno state bullshit. Like, yeah, but no, not really many people believe in that shit. But I really wanted to poke at this because this goes back to my philosophical question about the proper role of government. Because a lot of people don't think about this because you're very empathetic and you care about the betterment of people and making sure people aren't being killed, like murdered. That's great. People often forget that any law is backed up by a threat of death, right? Government will murder you if
threat of violence. Yeah.
No, murder. No, up to murder, right? So, and people don't like to think about it like this. So I'd like to walk them through an example, right?
Well, then just kill all the prisoners. Why don't we do that?
Not saying that. Not saying that. What I'm talking about, Ian.
Why not? Why not kill all the prisoners? Why are they in jail as opposed to just the death penalty?
Well, that's
because we care about them. Because people care about other people.
Correct, but
there's trends of understanding, like, maybe it's really traumatic for people to die, and maybe people who care so little about others being dead, like, maybe that's the virus. Maybe the sociopaths are the outliers who are destroying our society.
And that's what I'm trying to get at, man. That's what I'm trying to get at, is that a lot of people are very casually comfortable with the concept of murdering people who disagree with them, right? As long as it's done by somebody else, as long as somebody in a badge, in a costume, does it on their behalf, they're very comfortable with it. And so the point I was trying to drive home, Ian, is that every law, let's take, for example, I live in a state where cannabis is illegal, right? And if I have that growing in my backyard, on my property, not harming anybody, and that is illegal, deemed by the powers to be illegal, they will send armed people to my home. If they're made aware of it, they will come to my house and they will escalate violence against me up until the point of murder if I refuse. If I disagree and mean it,
sure.
Yeah, sure. And so that's what I'm getting at, is like a lot of people,
in the reference of, as opposed, like, in exchange of reason or reasoning at the moment, which is also why we have a trial process to extend that reason point. But, like, not like that's perfect, but
Ask
I
any black
understand what
person.
I understand exactly. I understand what you're saying, and it does influence. So yes, in the context of response, America especially has a very aggressive. I mean, there are other countries that do this.
We're the worst, though.
We are one of the worst. I mean, and we're the biggest. So it's like we have the most methods in which to kill families,
And the
both
highest
foreign
incarceration rate in the entire world.
and here. Yeah, literally. But if we treated them like we did people overseas, we would just drop bombs on the prisons, and you'd have a nice photo op with some celebrity or governor signing the bombs, being like, "This is gonna save America." It's like, no, you just killed a bunch of people, and now those people and their families and their families, anyone who those dead people are connected to,
hate America.
Remember and feel now pain and suffering at the hand of that violence. So in a historical way, yes, I like to be more optimistic with the way I structure my beliefs, which is also why my optimism for change fluctuates because of historical.
I think you mean positive
record.
change, because believe me, change is going to happen. I guess the question is whether it's positive or negative.
Is inevitable. It's whether the cycle restarts itself. That is, but even then, we have so much technology now. Like people who have been exposed to that technology are alive, and you'd have to kill every last one of them to go back to how we were. And
yep.
With everybody dead, other life is just gonna, like, the world's gonna keep spinning, whether it's bears or whether it's dogs or other apes. Orangutans are using wooden tools now.
Yeah, that's wild. I saw that.
Yeah, I just think we should just spread the wealth. Give orangutans sentience. Elevate them up to, like, just in an order of how, like, structurally evolved they are. Let's just give them the human brain gene. You're
trying to make Planet of the Apes in real life, man. Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to stop at apes. You could do crows, birds, level the playing fields. Some whales, maybe. That'd be kind of cool.
Multi-species world war sounds fun.
Dolphins. I mean, yeah, the interspecies racism would be pretty hot if they didn't have, like, it'd be pretty boiling over there. But we're just throwing shit at the wall anyway and seeing what sticks. The only thing is, like, this pretentious, like, guys that, like, and I mean this when I mean American politics, that this system, which is so absurdly flawed and frail and broken, like, how many millions of children go without food, but somehow we get a government like a bipartisan bill to ban TikTok. Like, anyone buys that. Like, it's so, like, blatant to such a degree, and the internet educates people a lot faster. Whether they're an iPad baby or whatever, you get this sweet spot of some kids who are like 10 and they already know all of American history, and they have all these different accounts, and by the time they're an adult, they're like professor level intelligence. I mean, I'm overgeneralizing, but, like, the people like this exist, and these people are, like, as humans are, impatient to see change, and they're passionate about the emotions that they feel. Like, I think, understanding the human brain and how to nurture it, and I can't say have like a manifesto or some kind of dossier, but, like, I think government, well, I run up against what's popular and what will work, right? What will tickle the fancy of the average human being from their perspective, that really grinds my, whatever altruism to a halt, because it's like, yeah,
man, I'm not talking to them, though. I'm talking to Ian. Like, tell me your perspective, dude.
Government salaries should be minimum wage. Including the president. You should have to have and your finances should be tracked. It should be every purchase you make, you buy condoms at the Rite Aid. That shit goes on a public website. You buy Shake Shack, public website. So you can't be funded externally. Lobbying is bribery. What's next? Healthcare. We could have solved that a while ago. Lots of countries. I feel like America's like literally pretending that it doesn't actually work in all of these countries that have much less deaths. But, you know, keep a, you know, if you're kept mad, you're not thinking about, you know, maybe we can both go to the hospital. And I don't just have to hate you because you're different than me. You know, it's like maybe we can both, maybe you just get your hospital stuff and I get my hospital stuff and we don't have to be best friends. Like, you're both go home.
Yeah, but Ian, we can't have healthcare and bomb half the world at the same time, though, dude. Like, we have to make priority trade-off decisions.
Like, straight up, I mean, energy, that's an easy fix, but I don't think they're ready for this one.
Okay, well, tell me your easy fix, man, because the people want to know.
Okay, picture this. We just build a big old daisy chain of satellites, solar array, build a big one on the face of Mercury. Maybe not right away. No, I mean, there's like tidal stuff. Like you could build a city with enough tidal like power generators on the water that it could like power like most of the country. Pretty. Why don't you
just use nuclear, man? Like nuclear's come a long way, right?
Yeah, use that if they can figure it out. I mean, the plasma, they're getting closer every day. They're getting closer.
No. I mean, I think we already have nuclear, right? So we don't have like tiny. I mean, I guess we do have some that power submarines, but like we don't have like small decentralized nuclear power plants in every neighborhood or anything. But nuclear is a very clean, safe power source right now today, and it feels like this has been a weird thing with the environmentalist types is that they're just like Germany, for example.
They build bombs with nuclear material, and they also make a lot of weapons. So I think the messaging there is too confusing for a lot of people because they see what has been done with nuclear material and they get very nervous. I'm hoping that like fusion kicks off. I'm hoping that because it's going to be a mixture of everything.
Yeah.
Renewables, plural. Like,
they figure out cold fusion, the problem's solved globally. Like,
yeah. I mean, but then again, like I feel like if I tried hard enough, like the CIA would take me out right away. I'd be like,
probably
like I want to make like a company where like a car that you don't have to replace the parts and it runs on water, like all that shit, all the feel good shit that you're not really allowed to talk about, but like we all know would better society, but you don't want to talk about it because of why? Well, because there's a gun pointed at your head, and to this you are correct. We just skimmed right over there, and I was but you're right. And if you want to discourage the working class, well, you can make examples of people. I mean, America's been doing that.
Oh, we love doing that. Since it
started. I mean, Luigi Mangione, free my boy. I mean, I'm probably on a watch list just for liking TikToks about the guy, but like, it's just real simple. Like I think it's the fragility of what was built in contrast to how fast we've changed in the past like 50, 60 years.
Hold on real quick before you skim past this. I think this is really important, and this is fascinating to me, is looking at the generational divide about the opinion about Luigi, right? And this is also a discussion.
Sure, yeah. Oh my God.
A discussion about violence too, right? And it's a complicated topic, and so I would love. You apparently have got strong opinions on this. I mean, like, what do you think about the Luigi situation?
I did make a TikTok about Luigi, expressing 2 conspiracy theories I had, but I don't actually have many conspiracy theories because it's just stuff I know and I don't know, and also things that wouldn't it be crazy if kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I'm thinking about it like this. I'm like, okay, ain't no way they found that boy with all that stuff in the McDonald's in his backpack. Like, to me, that's crazy. I don't know all the facts. All I do know is that if I were in charge of the world and also evil, uh, how do I like stay like everyone's on TikTok is talking about this big TikTok problem where all this empathy is accruing. Everyone on TikTok's talking about, oh, we'll just eat the rich, kill the CEOs, blah blah blah. Like, if we pretend like someone, if we made that happen, we showed what would happen to someone if they did that. Maybe they wouldn't do it. There's another more realistic theory that this guy he's just had enough. He's just done. He had some botched medical procedures, and the insurance company fucked him over, which is literally the most realistic scenario. And he just did what he wanted to do. And
man, people in chronic pain like that is really bad. And that messes with people's heads. I could see that as a very plausible explanation.
Oh yeah. I mean, especially like, and these same people will love to like champion the murder of like a homeless person on the subway.
You're talking about like the more right-leaning folks?
Yeah, literally. But be so appalled that someone of stature, someone with a lot of money in their bank account who was dreadfully gunned down earlier today. It's like no living person actually cares. And they don't even care. Like Fox News dudes, they don't give a shit. They're all being paid. Like, take their salaries away and see if they show up for fucking work in the morning. They're not. They're going to move on to the next thing. These people are addicted to attention. They're addicted to the feeling they get when they like rile up these people, and they know that like the more angry they make their inbred elderly audience, the more money they're going to get. It's literally that simple. And I mean, it's entertainment. The fact that they call it news is crazy. I don't find any like, like when there was this surge of like news platforms, like unopinionated, brass tacks news networks.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
About like a decade or so ago. And I remember getting so caught on this. I'm like maybe I can actually like learn some unbiased news. And then you really learn what the word bias means. Mm-hmm. And it's just like from the mouth of whom said it. Like, and there is some measure to unbiased news, but the bias picks the news that's important also. So you kind of have to like,
everybody wants to get their team news delivered to them right directly into their brain. If you're on the left, it's like this is the old trope of the CNN types, and you have the Fox News types. I think that's dead. I think that's like boomer shit. Like nowadays,
it's like sports affiliation. It's like, go Trump, go Biden. It's like nobody really like. It's just what people do to distract themselves from how absolutely dog shit their life is.
I think there's truth to that.
Like, yeah, you're sitting in a trailer, broke as shit, drug addicted. Like, your family hates you. Yeah, the mean man on the TV yelling, validating all of your hateful beliefs is gonna really amp you up. And then you're gonna be like, you're telling me Trump has shoes now? I need that. And then you're gonna spend the money because it's the lowest. The lower you can like place the trough or the sieve to comb the bottom, okay, you're going to collect all these people, and a lot of them very emotional, not very reserved. They're very loud. They'll go out of their way to talk about these things and upset people because they don't have the cognitive they don't care. They don't have the empathy, or they don't have the concept of consequences. You get this a lot with the woman who reported Luigi, who didn't use the tip line. She just called the cops, so she didn't get the prize money. And the McDonald's she worked at was so review bombed, they fired her ass.
Wow.
And that's how. And now she's hated by the entire working class, which is most of America. And like, it's just like all these different pieces, but somehow every week there's like a new reason to hate trans people. And I'm like, are we even like,
Isn't that on the way out, man? Haven't we done the trans thing?
yes.
I
Yeah.
feel like
Well,
that whole story arc is completely concluded, and it's like everyone's like, I'm tired of it. Every side is
well,
like,
you're
I'm.
tired of it. There are people, I mean, the only reason I stay consistent is because I have friends who are trans, and also like, I just think not feeling like yourself in your own skin and then being attacked for wanting to change is like a really important feeling. And I
You
think it's an
don't.
important struggle for people. So I talk about also there's this like delusional circus act of people on TV and obviously like the Daily Wire who want to like make extremely small group of people the largest problem. And it's too confusing because the people who they're preaching to just don't have that thought in their head.
Yeah,
These
yeah,
people are
that's what I
repressed
mean,
in other ways.
dude. That's what I mean. Is like this is what exhausts me. I think it exhausts a lot of people. Is that it is this exceedingly small minority of people. It's this tiny sliver, and the only things you hear are the most extreme examples of either somebody being horribly treating a trans person terribly, or has the worst takes on the right, and then you have the person on the left that's like the craziest version of whatever you could conceptualize, and that gets brought to
Yeah.
the fore. People start
Right.
arguing with each other. Meanwhile, we're not talking about these people that legitimately have got issues and need some support from society. I don't think it does them any good, right? So it's why I get a little bit irritated with it. It's like we don't need to be fighting about these culture
Yeah.
war things to the
Sure.
nth degree
Yeah.
while these people are actually suffering, and could just need to be like, hey man, like you go by she, her, cool. Like I don't give a
Yeah.
shit. Like I mean
Now let's get free healthcare.
that is the extent of the conversation. That's as far as it should
Right.
fucking go in my view, right? And I just hate the fact that this stuff gets politicized and people are at each other's throat. It's such an
Polls
easy.
so low. The low, no one by statistics gives a shit what people want to consider themselves as. Because the longer it goes on, the more time you have to realize this doesn't affect me at all. Why do I give a shit about this? Like, and then they're like, yeah, you keep saying that. I don't see it that often. Or if I do, it's like, on Own the Libs, or it's some like the amount of, I mean, Twitter is Twitter. Anyone can make a bot to be like, it's very elevated, but that's for people who like, people, what is it? It's for people who like that environment, and the people who thrive in that environment hang out with each other. It's kind of like the modern 4chan for.
It's kind of
like,
turned into that, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think it's on. I think once something like simple enough to use that feels right will come to replace Twitter, people will just leave. I think there's structures for. I think there's structures for news delivery that people are too comfortable with, so that have to be like copied, pasted, tweaked, and then not.
But man,
run
didn't they
by
just try this with
a
Blue Sky and
fascist
it just
loser.
turned into a nightmare overnight?
Well, I mean, again, there are bots. You can, if you see, like, if like from the right wing's perspective, a well-performing place where people want to feel safe, wouldn't it be funny if we just went over there and fucked it over for them? That's what happens with so many websites, that I feel like you have to kind of anticipate that. And I mean, all I see, like, I can barely go on Twitter. I missed your text yesterday.
I know.
Yesterday
I'm there all
because
the time.
I was just like, I'll go on Twitter to kind of like catch up on a few things, get updates here and there, but like, I have all notifications on social media turned off. So I have to manually go and check it, because the kind of mindset it fosters, if you're like glued to it, really, really dangerous for your own mental health and your own like personal view. Like, I scroll on Instagram, like I'll see a Instagram reel that seems interesting, and then I'll scroll twice and it's already targeting all of my insecurities, trying to sell me shit I don't need. Like, it's never going to replace TikTok, but it so desperately wants to be relevant. I'm like, and I think so. I think people will eventually leave Twitter. Also, I think Elon's probably going to go. He's going to keep embarrassing himself, and then one of his Cybertrucks is going to blow up a family of 5 or something. I feel like it's just I have a strong belief, a karmic belief, in a way, because I can't really explain certain things, but I understand that, cause and effect. I think bad people do bad things because they like it. And I think they're incentivized to do bad things because they're bad people. And I think good people will feel remorse when they do a bad thing. And I think these simple, very simple trains that you can like watch happen in real life, like I can't really name drop right now, but some people that I've witnessed very recently do some very, not even just self-destructive, like people who you watch hurt people, and those hurt people are like, that person hurt me, like, help us. And then there's this like kind of spectatorish, like, oh my God, did you hear about that? And then they just move on to the next thing. And they're like, I deeply feel the emotion of apologetic and other such emotions. I should not have done that, as it affects my financial bottom line. And I will pretend like nothing has happened and move on with my regular content, as if that is undoing my harmful actions. It's like, after a series of these, you're like, okay, I get it. I'm just gonna go focus on some other shit. Like I know how this one's gonna end, and I think that's I don't know if Elon's capable of humility, but he's definitely capable of insecurity, and I think that that's going to be his downfall, as it is for most narcissists.
It definitely may. And speaking of thin skin and narcissists, I want to end with this, man. We obviously have an inauguration coming up, and the world is changing for at least the next 4 years. What do you see coming, dude? Like, what's in the crystal ball?
Just with a big F, just a huge F, fascism. In a way, I think it's hard to like force Americans to do anything. Like, the government's so confident that they can convince Americans of certain things. Like, as long as it impacts like their way of life, like, they will wholly abandon it. They will wholly like change like the tides of the fucking ocean. Like, I think, and we're gonna have to see. I think that the amount of, I mean, there's so many places this can impact. I'm not really gonna try to cover all of them, but I will say that I wrote this down, and I should find it. But fascism, I appreciate people who are educating people about what fascism is, and how to understand it, and how to educate people on how to properly handle it, right? How to properly organize, and educate people on the dangers of fascism. But fascism relies on the illusion that you get everything you want if you do whatever I say. Like, it's a wholly emotional, wholly fabricated by the leader, by the person at the top, and the people that he hires to manipulate and propagandize and proselytize, and usually it tries to become some kind of religion, as we've seen many times throughout history. A lot of times the religious part doesn't work, but people already pray to Trump in America. There is a non-negligible group of people who think he is like the second coming of Christ. And I think that although I am aware that it would, like, things can change through like a rigid, aggressive organization of people that supersede this status quo, become bigger, I am only optimistic. I cannot be certain, because it either has to be torn down in one way or another and rebuild on top of that. And there's a lot of like sociopathic, crazy people with their hand on that big red button. And, I'm not I can't see the future, but as provided we're all still alive, I think, and decensorship happens. I think this interesting. You know, Mark Zuckerberg recently coming out and saying he's going to stop censorship. I love that idea, because not because I like bullying to increase on a platform, but because these people like, let's say the Zuckerberg, or people on the rights, or people who don't actually have as much empathy as they portray, and want bullying to exist, and want to make fun of trans people, or want to, you know, use slurs, or, you know, oh, it's just words, you know, they want to rewrite racial history. Like, these people are some of the most, like, juvenile brained, insecure morons this planet has. All the empathetic people have to do is understand that they are just as easy of a target as you. And obviously, I think the ideal scenario is the more emotionally intelligent, the more aware, will inevitably find a smarter way to bully these assholes into wanting censorship back. You know, it can kind of just flip on its head. Because I can think of a million things my dad probably thinks of me, and the amount of slurs he would call me just because of his own emotional baggage, blah, blah, blah. But I could think of one that would ruin his year. You know what I mean? He's so, like, he's like a little glass egg. Just a crack for me. Just like, you can't set him anywhere. But there's slurs written all over it. You know, it's like, who's really going to win? Obviously, more empathetic people don't want to cause emotional violence like that. But I think push will come to shove. And I think there are people who have agency to protect those who cannot protect themselves. And that's the human spirit. That's the indomitable human spirit. I think it's going to win. We got great choices we can make. People with empathy. We fight back against the snowflakes.
Oh, dear God. Couple of things there. I don't agree that we should be censoring stuff, right? I'm a just in case you haven't figured out, I'm a huge extreme libertarian, man. I'm anti-violence. I'm anti-war. I'm pro-free
How
speech.
extreme are we talking?
I'm an
How
anarchist.
extreme are we talking?
I'm an anarchist. Yeah, I don't.
When we talk about the center.
Sorry, what?
When we talk about the, I just want to know how in the middle you are.
I'm not in the middle and left or right or anything. So I'm an individual issue person, right? Like, I honestly, right. I want to look at an issue. For example, let's talk about free speech. You know, on these platforms, like, I think, like we talked about, the decentralized computing machine, which is our giant human bio brain, needs to function via free flow of information. I'm a pro-freedom person, but I'm also a pro-responsibility person, which is frankly why I think people don't like freedom generally, because it comes with that responsibility. And you should be careful about how you use your freedom. You should not be going out, you know, this is a should.
I agree. I'm not saying that you're like, more so I was poking fun. A lot of some people say that they're very centrist, and I'm like, how centrist? Do you believe in the age of consent? Do you believe in, not like I was saying that, but like,
yeah, I got you.
You know, and you never know. I like to be aware. I like to either way. I think censorship. I think everyone should be able to learn the same stuff in a space where they're not being attacked by the things they're trying to consume. Although this is very difficult.
It's not good for you, right?
We haven't had any good shit ever. So like, the contrast is going to feel like a big change, and censorship is being like taken out of context, like over generalized. I think it's more so like understand you're not the only human being in the world, and like, you should have consequences if you do bad shit. You can say whatever you want. You can say everything under the sun. You can do anything you want. But like a hard awareness of consequences, I think, is why I mentioned like reverse bullying. Like,
yeah, you're talking about something super, super important. I think we agree, right?
Yeah.
Which is, I think that consequences should be societally enforced, right? Socially enforced. Like you act like a dick on the internet, you should face all of the
Yeah.
consequences. One of the things I don't like about censorship is the sort of chilling effect as far as like making people not show you who they really are. I think there's so many shitty opinions and so many shitty views that people are afraid that their account's going to get banned. They can't say this right. Then they start turning to these weird code ways of
Conspiracy. They're
yeah,
after me. They want to shut me up. They want to censor me. Like so there is a conspiracy. Like
and that sort of stuff is attractive to a certain type of personality. You say, look,
right.
the man is after me, and it sort of emboldens, it drives people some sympathy their way. Look, you're being oppressed. It's a very easy narrative. If you're just allowed to say what you want to and you say some racist bullshit, and the rest of the internet, number one, they know who you are.
Right.
Everybody knows exactly who you are, and then everybody can say back whatever the hell they want to say. And like that's the world I want to be a part of, right? Like I seriously want like the assholes to put up red flags saying I'm a giant asshole. And then I love the concept of having some sort of control over what you see, right? I think you can do a lot with tech. Being in tech, like I'm partial to this sort of approach, which is like, look, I don't want to see any Nazi bullshit. I don't want to see it like this, that, and the other. Like you have some ability as a user to be like, look, I don't want the full unfiltered Wild West internet of all this stuff. I'd like to have a nice pleasant place that I help curate, as opposed to letting the algorithm do it for you, or
to design to like stimulate your pleasure hormones and like force you to be addicted to something. I mean, you let people do so, and then there's a difference between censorship and regulation. I think those are two very different things. But like, I believe in regulation. I'll tell you that, at least to the degree that it is honest. If you're going to give people something with lead in it and you want to save a buck, has to say that it has lead in it. Every batch. Like, I mean, make it happen. Like, I don't give a shit about corporate profits. I don't give a shit about stakeholders, shareholders. I mean, it's all just a bunch of old men sitting around doing nothing but collecting money. Soulless, vile human beings. They should be ground up and spread amongst our crops to
like Soylent Green
the next harvest
for the earth.
Literally, I do not care. You know, I'm not an especially violent person. I just have a lot of emotions about. Like, I just want to cut right through the big lie. I think that this is what we're supposed to be doing, and all the shit that I get that's like designed to like justify it, and like, oh, but you know, until somebody says legally that you can't use AI to manipulate children to spend their parents' hard-earned money on digital bullshit that'll disappear when the company ends next month, is immoral. I want that to be accounted for by the ethics of the government itself. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do get what you're saying, but I guess the philosophy nerd in me bristles at the mixing of the words ethical with government. I think those are opposites.
Well, that's historical. That's, you're trusting history. You're just a reasonable person. Again, I'm saying, like, I can say all the fluffy, you know, I can describe to you this perfect world that I live in that I probably would not live in. I don't think I'll live to see this world that I imagine is good. And I think, and because I go up against this whole things that the way human beings have been for the past 100,000 years, you know, it's like, what am I going to do? But I can do whatever I can do. I can try, at least in my own little area, my own little spot. Yeah. I have a hell of a lot more brain cells than David Miscavige, so I think I'm ahead of the curve on at least one range. I mean, he's shitting his pants right about now.
Why? Was there something going on that I'm not aware of? I'm not super deep in the Scientology stuff. What's going on?
Well, I mean, despite Scientology's falling numbers, there's a lot of things brewing, is what I can say.
Okay.
And I don't think this is anything that Scientology is expecting or anticipating. I just know that what motivates people is, for the most part, what they feel is right. And whether it's what feels right to me is to sit on the couch and relax because I've had a rough day, or what feels right is to teach people in a new way things they haven't considered about topics that are seemingly milked dry of perspective. This is my vague way of saying there's a lot of smart people who dislike Scientology, and I don't think it's going to be solvent in my lifetime. So, suffice it to say, the more you think of yourself as less like other people, the less you're going to really care about what they're doing. And when you stomp on their lives, they're still there. They don't disappear. You can't shut off the game. You can't hit pause. When you go to sleep, they're still out there. When you wake up for work, they're still out there. And David Miscavige has stepped on a lot of people. And I think, the universe works in mysterious ways, and bad people do bad things, and they should face consequences.
Boy, amen to that. I'm hoping that I'm going to be hearing some news in the near future. So hopefully, if it does happen, you can flag me down and say, "Hey, the thing happened," or it'll be so publicly obvious that I'll be like, "Yo, Ian, I know what you're talking about." So
yeah. Well, I should also pay tribute to we recently the recent passing of Mike Rinder, who was an extremely important voice, having defected from the cult himself, and he's dedicated his life to educating people. He recently tragically lost his life to cancer. He was surrounded by his loved ones when he was at the end, which is the more than most of us can hope for. I think second chances are really are all around you. They're all over the place. You just have to reach out and grab it. And he showed that to both me and a lot of other people. And I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if he didn't do the work that he did. Him and Leah Remini and other very hardworking people who spread these messages and fight to see Scientology be held accountable. So I just want to pay some respect to him, and that the fight does not end there.
Yeah, certainly, man. Well, hey, that's a good place to wrap it, man. A good positive note to end the kind of gross political discussion. But hey, I appreciate the insights, man. You're a definitely unique individual. I love your perspective. I love the fact that you're aiming towards the good, regardless of whether we agree on everything. I don't give a shit. Like, I think you're a good faith actor that really wants the best for the world, and I think that you're a little more radical than you let on, which I love, because I get accused of that too. It's like, oh, you're trying to change society too much. Like, yeah, but I really think that we kind of should.
Yeah, everybody loves to hate a radical. So
all good, man. Well, hey.
But I appreciate you. I mean, you're very easy to talk to. You're very easy to recenter the conversation with, and I appreciate people like you and who have perspectives, who are like, it feels like we're having a conversation, whereas it feels
kind of the point.
Instead of like feeling like I'm waiting for the other person to stop talking, or they're like we're actually conversing about things, not just reciting what we rehearsed in the car.
Well, hey, I appreciate that. That's the intention, and I just really do enjoy these conversations. So hopefully that's coming through, man. Really appreciate you, bud, man. Really love the fact that you're really working on the stuff in the Scientology world, but I think you have a lot more to offer. So I'm really happy that we had a conversation about something else.
I mean, I had a fun talk. It felt pretty good. Felt pretty, letting out some steam. I appreciate it. I think we can do this. We can do this more. Just let me know.
I'll certainly reach out, dude. Well, hey, thanks for stopping by. I got to run, but chat later, dude.
Sounds good, man. Take it easy.
Yeah. Bye-bye.